that one develops. So, not too different conditions from last time out at the Nordschleife of the Nürburgring, but a very, very different track. Very, very different track. Purpose-made racetrack. We're about 45 kilometers outside of the Russian capital, Moscow. We're to the west, not too far from a small town called Istra, still in the greater Moscow province, in fact. But this purpose-built racetrack, very much in the modern era, so lots of constant radius corners, nothing's allowed to tighten up on itself. And this is a fairly low grip circuit, not least because it gets relatively little use. Well, let's hear from Jose Maria Lopez, see what he's got to say.
You do outlap like a quali outlap. Then, after the first run, we do a race team. So we change the pitch, the wing position, the preload, and the pressure.
Okay, so when I exit now, I do one fast lap, and then I can race?
Yeah, one time lap.
Okay.
So no practice start on the first run, and we do a practice start on the second run, and at the end of the second run.
So all of that just before he was due to go out, and you hear the engineer then working through what they're going to do, changing the preloads, that'll be on the differential, changing the pressure on the tyres, changing the wing setup, changing the rake on the car as well. So what they're doing right from the beginning of free practice is setting up what they will do at the beginning of qualifying. So he's doing his out lap, one hard lap and then in, no practice start on the out lap. He'll do a practice start when he goes back out after the changes. So they're working through the various different elements that the drivers need to put into their heads and work their way around, and in a very logical process. So there's his engineer, and as he comes out of turn one into turn two, this is really quite a low-speed technical section of the track, turn three, and this long right-hander. This actually does become a tighter right-hander. Nicky Katzberg coming down the end of the long back straight. There's the pit entry road on your left, and queuing up behind teammate Ugo Valente. And in the background, reminding me that there is a parish notice, is that James Thompson returns for his third weekend in the all-Inkle Munich Motorsport Chevrolet. So Tomo's raced on this track before, of course, and starting to get to grips with the car. On the left-hand side, as we ride with Nicky Katzberg, we saw Grégoire de Moustier in his Citroën, waiting in the box to do a practice start. Tomo goes through, dives down into turn three, sort of drops away down underneath you as well, turn three, really quite tricky. Following Van Muller, again into the same sector of the racetrack. All looks fairly anodyne and fairly flat from outside, but in fact there are a few gradient changes here. Did everybody just follow Norby late onto the brakes there and they all went off? It's a remarkably sort of formation flying group of everybody going off late. Van Muller down the end of the back straight. Very unusual that you'll make a pass into the final corner. Very tight left-hander at turn 15. Can be done, but what normally happens is you tow up behind on the back straight, try and stay with them down the front straight, and then maybe make a pass into turn one or two. Of course, that doesn't always work exactly how they might have hoped. Rob Huff going fastest at the moment from Ted Björk in the Volvo. Fredrik Ekblom third quickest in his Volvo. And the weight penalties at the moment. There are no extra kilos above base weight for the Chevrolets, 20 for Lada, 30 for Honda, and 80 for Citroën. Nicky Katzberg, chatting to him this morning at breakfast about his experience last weekend at Le Mans test weekend, test day, where he was the fastest man in GTE. And he was saying, yeah, actually, coming from the Nordschleife, the 24-hour circuit at Le Mans was really not so much of a problem, he said. Took a few laps to really get your head around the Porsche curves. They are really quite demanding, but the rest of it, he said, yeah, great fun, really enjoyed it. Unfortunately, he doesn't get a drive, doesn't have the budget, and so Jacques Lecomte's Labre competition team have taken a driver they have regularly raced with before. So Nicky Katzberg will be going to Le Mans next week with the rest of us, but will not be competing, unfortunately. However, I think he certainly flagged up that he can definitely do the job. He's a very good GT racer as well as a very good touring car racer. Huffer Montero being tailed by Björk and Ekblom. Huffy fastest at the moment as Tom Chilton comes into the pits. Be interesting to see what the Volvo drivers make of this track, how it suits their car. I think based on what we saw in Marrakesh, they could really do with it remaining dry. Still haven't really got much of an answer as to why the car was so lamentably unable to grip the track in Marrakesh in the rain. The Volvo just was all at 6s and 7s, whereas it looked fairly okay in Paul Ricard in the wets. Now, whether that was masked by the fact that Paul Ricard is a much longer, faster track or not, I'm not entirely sure. Huff, Montero, Michelitz, top 3 as they were in yesterday's testing session. And again, that view down into turn 3, getting tighter and tighter. Up over the crest here into turn 7. Quite a quick approach through 7 and 8. And then popping up over the brow, turn 9, in fact, over the brow there. And you see, that's quite a good camera shot, really indicates, well, you saw Tom Coronel's car get a little squirrely and out of shape, and his Chevy being chased by James Thompson's. I think Tomo perhaps feeling a little more comfortable with the Chevy. This is only the 3rd time ever he's driven the car, don't forget. Never raced Chevrolets before. So Chevys at the moment, whereas Coronel is 11th, Thompson is 9th, ahead of Ivan Muller. Of course, Ivan's done that outlap, in-lap thing. And so too, Pachito has now, Pachito's in still, so they're doing some adjustments to Lopez's car. Tomo really just needs a couple of test days, more than anything else, I think, to really get himself feeling strong in this car. And the reason that we're seeing all these guest drivers, if you like, in the Munich Motorsport car is that René Munich is finding, like everybody else this season, that everything is clashing with everything. It often seems that things clash with each other, but this season it actually seems somebody has sat down with a very large degree of mendacity and guaranteed that everything you want to do will clash with everything else you want to do. And so most of René Munich's World Touring Car Championship season clashes with his World Rallycross season. So as a result, we've had Sabine Schmitz in the car at the Nürburgring, and this is James Thompson's 3rd outing in the car. So that's 4 weekends we haven't had a René Munich, and in fact, I think René has only driven the car once this season, and this is the midpoint. This is the 6th race weekend. Now, you can see what an enthusiast he is for motorsport in general, in that not only is he competing, but he's continuing to have his other car, his other team, i.e. the touring car team, out and fielding good drivers in the car at every available opportunity, even though there's no material benefit for him at all, other than, of course, then his company gets the advertising kudos of being on the car and being in camera. He just likes to know that there are good drivers driving the car for him. So in a way, René Munich, although he is actually a driver competitor, he's starting to become a bit of a Count Rudy van der Straat and Mark van der Straat, a kind of almost in the position where you can imagine that Munich Motorsport will become a kind of VDS setup where you're an enthusiast, le patron, and you fund and source the resources to run drivers in cars purely for the love of the sport, in a way that Lord Hesketh did in the 1970s, setting up a Grand Prix team just because he loved being around the sport. Well, first forays done for everybody. Nicky Katzberg has just left the pits. John Philippi has not come in. Other than that, there are no cars on track. There you go, Gregoire de Moustier. I missed him, didn't I? He's still out, and so is Mehdi Banani. All right. Yeah, so 3 cars on track at the moment. And John Philippi has not come in, so he's just getting laps under his belt. That's him in the background. Spoke to Greg at the coffee machine at breakfast as well. Coffee machine under quite severe strain in the hotel this morning because the extra hour earlier for the Europeans, or 2 for us Brits, when you come to Moscow, makes a big difference. When you get up at 6:30 on the alarm clock, it's not, of course, 6:30 on the body clock, it's 4:30 in the morning, so everybody feeling the need for a little boost. A double espressos on the IOC's banned list? I'm not sure. I don't think you can be dope tested positive for double espressos, no matter how many you have. So Nicky Katzberg back up to speed then. Whoop. I might have to have a word with Mirek and find out exactly which corners they are looking at, particularly with regard to track limits. I wasn't here for driver's briefing yesterday. So turn 1 is always a likely culprit. As you can see, cutting the inside of the corners is going to result in a fairly severe penalty, i.e. removal of wings and wheels because of the tyre stacks there. Coming out of 14 down the long back straight. You can see the big grandstand there that on the left-hand side, that surrounds the corner 3 complex. Sort of mini Mercedes arena. In fact, it is actually sponsored by AMG as well, so it is an actual Mercedes arena. Popping up over a little brow into the final braking area. If you go off wide in the final corner, you're in all sorts of trouble, and that's normally going to be because you're wheel-to-wheel with somebody who's snuck up your inside. But carrying speed through turn 1 can be a bit tricky with regard to track limits. And as we saw earlier, lots and lots of drivers just carrying a little too much in and running too wide. The free practice is the time for working that out, when if you get doctor lap, it doesn't actually matter. So what are they doing on Norby's car? Well, one of 2 things, one of 3 things, one of several things. Either making a camber or a caster change, so the angle of the wheels, probably not making a toe change, I would have thought at that stage, but either that or maybe damper settings, but again, you would think probably more to do with the angle of the driven wheels rather than anything else. Nicky Katzberg, 100th of a second up. So purple sector 1. And just to run through it again, if it's white on black, then that's no major good news for them. If it's white on green, that means it's a personal best. If it's white on purple, that means it is the best of the entire session, of the entire field. So there you go. Purple means better than anyone else in sector 1, and green means a personal best in sector 2, but plus means he is over the total time of the fastest lap, which is currently set by Rob Huff. 1:39.0. Yesterday, Thiago Monteiro was fastest of all, 1:38.5. And that was yesterday morning, about the same time as second free practice, but it was warmer and drier. A little bit more rubber down. See how busy the hands are of Nicky Katzberg. It's because these touring cars, to preserve the front, you tend to have the back a little loose and wayward and bouncing around a bit. So you quite often see little snatches of opposite lock being grabbed as the car oversteers a little bit more. Katzberg goes 4th fastest. Let's hear what the score is with Lopez.
There is some drops of water in the last part of the circuit.
Now, I was thinking just the same thing when we had that last onboard shot of Nicky Katzberg. I didn't particularly notice water on the screen, but I did notice how much darker the clouds were looking. And that is coming towards us. Rather hard to tell from where I'm commentating in a secondary editing unit in one of the TV trucks here. and the aircon kicked in just about at the beginning of the session, and it now feels as though I'm actually doing a winter sport rather than anything else. It's absolutely perishing. However, fastest personal lap from Gabriele Tarquini. Others were fairly quick yesterday as well. Nicky Katsberg fourth, behind the three Hondas. Ted Björk was fifth, Hugo Valente was sixth. Best of the Citroens was Jose Maria Lopez, seventh quickest. This is probably, in theory, not going to be the greatest circuit for Citroen, because there's a lot of direction changes that come quite close together and aren't particularly high speed. The Citroen is a longer wheelbase car than most of its rivals, and that makes it a little harder to change direction. Of course, we do know it is a fabulous chassis, but it just does have that length, and that's why it runs quite such a rake, is to try and get more weight over the front aerodynamically as well as mechanically, and to rotate the car around the front wheels. Basically, the longer the chassis, the more stable it'll be in high-speed corners, which is why it rocks away from everybody at places, particularly like Paul Ricard. Grand Prix circuit was just about the most perfect place for it. But of course, Citroen coming in here with so many years of rally experience, and then heading off from here with so many more years of rally experience in front of them, they do know how to make a car handle well. Ted Björk, fastest first sector of all. Tom Chilton, a quick lap. Gabriele Tarquini, a quick lap. Yvan Muller's just done his best lap. He's 10th. James Thompson now 11th. John Philippi is the best of the Chevrolets at the moment, 8th fastest. So that shows there's a bit of time to come out of the Chevys. 1:39.7. The Chevrolet yesterday did a 1:39.3 in the hands of John Philippi. So Philippi at the back of the shot there in the blue and green Chevrolet, clearly finding plenty of pace. Ted Björk as well, 7th quickest. There's the Cyan Polestar guys. Now, they had a little bit of an issue. Might start to become a little bit close in their garage, because they arrived yesterday en masse, or day before yesterday en masse. Unfortunately, their luggage didn't. So by the time they had finished claiming at a Russian-speaking baggage desk for all their luggage, and got to the hire car desk because they were later than expected, they didn't have a hire car or a minibus either. So not only have they got no clothes, they haven't got enough vehicles for all the crew either. So, yeah, it's a tough weekend in prospect. Norbert Mikulicz goes fastest of all. Green first sector, black second sector, so not even his own best. Green third sector, all adding up to a purple lap, 1:38.9. And yesterday, that would have been good enough for fourth. John Philippi again on a good lap as we watch Hugo Valente. Valente's just 7th fastest at the moment. Everybody making one stop. In for a second time, Nicky Katsberg. In for a second time, Rob Huff as well. There's John Philippi, fastest of the Chevrolets. Currently in 10th position, now 2nd fastest, as Tom Coronel has gone up to 9th and bumped him down. Both Volvos in the top 10, Ted Björk in the top 5. Now, if they can continue that pace without anybody else outstripping them particularly and improving as we go into qualifying, then we'll have a Volvo going through into Q3. Of course, after the Nürburgring, where we didn't do Q1, Q2, Q3, we just said, here's the track, boys, have at it. John Philippi goes ahead of Tom Coronel again. We are back to Q1, Q2 and Q3 here, so we will eliminate various parts of the field after 20 minutes, and then after a further 10 minutes, and then go in for our top 5 shootout. So the Scaro Chevrolet looking like it's having its neck pretty well wrung here. This is really good showing from young John Philippi. Clearly buoyed up by France's victory over Romania yesterday evening. You may imagine that in the hotel, the Citroen team were not entirely dispassionate about how it was going on. Wasn't near a TV screen, but I didn't need to be, because you could hear from the oohs and the ahs and the sighs and the gasps and the cheers exactly how close Romania got early on. And then the first goal from Sitchin, tip of the tongue, from France, and the second stunning scorcher. I think they all went a bit mentalist over that one. So it wasn't a particularly early night for the teams and for the French members of the paddock, but they went to bed happy anyway. Talking to Jose Maria Lopez in the lift this morning, saying, "Did you watch the match?" He said, "No, I don't care." Of course, Argentina not interested in the Euros. So, I don't care about France. I'm sure his fiancée Victoire would possibly be a little bit more interested, possibly not. John Philippi, 8th fastest now. Ugo Valente just in front of him in the larder by 5 thousandths of a second. And this is comfortably the best shown by John Philippi in a while. And if he can produce this again in qualifying, then he will be a very happy boy, I think. Comfortably inside the top 10. Fredrik Ekblom 9th, Tom Coronel 10th. And still a Honda 1-2-3, Nobo Mikulic, Rob Huff and Thiago Monteiro. See, Huff's out on track, the other two in the pits, about half the field in the pits at the moment. So it's a good time to be out on track, getting speed. We talk about the times, of course, really for the drivers. The time in the end is the ultimate vindication that you're doing all the other things right. You're not chasing a time at the expense of anything else. What you're doing is working through a program, trying to perfect your car. Yikes. See, that would have been nice to stay on board with that little pop-up over the brow there, because that onboard shot gives you a very good view of just how blind that corner is. I mean, you have no view round it at all, not from the camera angle, and certainly not from how low the drivers sit in the car. And when you pop up over that brow, the car really floats. I mean, it really floats. Even, you know, even the safety car, even road cars, really just woo over there. And you saw Rob got in very quick there, lots of pace, and the car wasn't entirely as comfortable, I think, maybe as he'd like to have been. Tom Coronel back in the pits, and a cycling rubber round, little rear steer adjustment. So yeah, look at the angle of the wheel there. So the wheel is not going straight in a line front to back. The front edge of the wheel is pointing outwards, so a little bit like duck toes. The front edges of the wheels at the rear are pointing out, and the rear edges are further inwards than they are. So instead of a pair of parallel wheels, they're sort of a bit like a V, with the open end of the V towards the front of the car. So why do you do that? Well, in your road car, you'd do that and it would ruin your tyres, and it would just, you wouldn't really notice. But in a racing car, what that helps to do is, if you can imagine the wheel is slightly sticking out and pointing out, if you start to turn left and the car leans onto the right, what happens then is the rear wheel, instead of trying to go straight ahead, actually tries to steer away from the direction of the corner. So it brings the tail around and slightly makes the car oversteer a little, and that's exactly what they're trying to produce on these rear-wheel drive cars, is get the balance between the front end taking it through and the rear end helping by skidding a little wide. There you go, there's a good view of just a little too much rear steer on Jose Maria Lopez's car. There's another compliance in the suspension on a lot of these cars, that when the suspension gets laden up and the car pushes down on it, it complies a little bit and actually exaggerates the amount that the rear tyre tows out. And by towing out, not T-O-W, T-O-E, tow out or tow in, is how far away from straight ahead the wheels are, either at the front or the rear of the car. So that the bumps, it's called bump steer, it's called rear steer actually, strictly. Bump steer is a bad thing, rear steer is more controllable and is a good thing. When the car leans on the tyre, it moves that toe further out and it enhances the car's sort of oversteery nature. But you do have to be quite delicate about how you do it, and it's a fairly finite business because, as we saw, if you just go a little too far in that direction, you can end up with a car that basically is trying to throw you off the circuit backwards, which is a little more lively, perhaps, than everybody entirely needs. Thiago Montero's view of, where are we here? This is 8, 9, 10, 11, the sort of second technical section. Little short shoot from 12 to 13, and then corner 14, and then onto the back straight. A couple of spots of water on the camera lens, nothing major, no umbrellas up yet. Let's take a look here. Again, this is the tightening downhill left-hander at corner 3. When the car's on the brakes, of course, it pitches onto its nose, and as you start to turn right, it tries to lift up that right-hand inside wheel. And in fact, because the cars are so stiffly sprung, as a racing car, it succeeds. As a road car, it wouldn't, but you'd still feel that lean, wouldn't you? You can imagine it, I'm sure. 3.5 minutes on the clock. Norbert Michelitz still the fastest man from teammates Rob Huff and Thiago Montero. Now, who does that look like at the back of the garage? I know it doesn't look like Thiago, but it's like somebody, and I can't think who. Ted Björk 4th, Nicky Katzberg 5th, Gabriel Tarquini and Ugo Valente 6th and 7th. So we've got 3 Hondas and 3 Ladas, punctuated by a Volvo in the middle. Tom Chilton currently 16th. Say what? How many laps? 9. The only other person only to have done 9 is Nicky Katzberg. Ivan Muller's done 12. That's more than anybody else. Again with Thiago dropping downhill and climbing back up a little bit. Does undulate here as you come round 7, 8 and 9. And then 10, 11 and 12 again, same thing, so a little dip between them and back up onto the back straight, and then you drop down, as you can see there at the beginning. Let's hear what Thiago's got to say, having a chat with the team.
No, this is much worse, much worse. Can I come in and change? Can I come in and change? No time, no time, no time. Okay, I'll do another lap.
Okay, well, whatever they did, let's undo that then, with the first job after FP1. Okay, so what is not good? Let's have a look. Oh, well, Volvo gets out of the pit lane just in front of him. Okay, it doesn't look wildly oversteery. It does look wildly oversteery, doesn't it? Just as I'm saying that, exactly as I'm saying that, he goes down the hill into turn 3, and you just see the back dragging him away from the line. So yeah, okay, so a little bit too much rear steer. So Lada at the moment, 5, 6, 7. Nicky Katzberg on a purple sector lap, purple second sector. And up the top of the hill. Out of the final corner and across the line. He goes fastest of all for Lada. That car looking nicely set up, and look at that, nearly 4 tenths quicker than a Honda as well. A 1:38.549 is almost the fastest lap that has been driven around the circuit so far this weekend. It's the second fastest lap. Only Thiago Montero's lap yesterday was quicker. We might be hearing from a happy Victor Shapovalov in a minute or two. I imagine Legui is on her way down there fairly soon, unless Norby is going to spoil the party, which he's not. He hasn't even got a personal best first sector on this lap, and second sector ditto. I'm not quite sure who any of the drawings at the back of the garage are we? Suggestion on the text machine from the pit lane that the bearded character at the back of Thiago's pit is Wolverine, which I think is a very fair call. Not that it wasn't what I was thinking of, but that works well. Nicky Katzberg on another personal best lap. Checkered flag is out. Katzberg having a bit of a fly at the moment, so too Ugo Valente. Although, no, it's not actually a personal best lap for Ugo. Nicky Katzberg putting in another good, strong lap. So this is not going to be faster than his previous. This might end up being the second fastest lap of the session, which currently is a 1:38.938. And this is a 38.688. So Nicky Katzberg has the fastest and second fastest laps of the session. And Ugo up to the final corner, late in on the brakes. And that's not such a big brow as up at the top of the hill at corner 7, corner 9 rather. So it's not exactly like Druids at Brands Hatch. You don't have to brake before the brow. You can brake where you want to rather than where geography dictates that you should. However, like Druids, if you brake too late, you go flying straight on. And John Philippi comes across the line, takes a checkered flag, 8th fastest. Yep, very handy, liking that a lot. Fastest of the independents. Tom Coronel, second fastest, the independents, 10th. And Ferenc Fitcher, now didn't see him at all in our camera shots for most of the session. However, 13 laps, he is 3rd of the independents. And that's really strong. And in fact, Fischer, in his Zengo Motorsport Honda, is ahead of Ivan Muller and Mehdi Benani and Jose Maria Lopez and Gregor de Moustier and Tom Chilton. In fact, he is ahead of all the Citroens. Wow. Hang a minute, I'm missing one. No, he is ahead of all the Citroens. The Citroens are, after first free practice, Muller 12th, Benani 14th, Lopez 15th, Chilton 16th, de Moustier 17th. So either they really are working through something and are absolutely not interested at all in putting together coherent quick laps, or they're going to have a big struggle on their hands. Let's hear from Nicky Katzberg.
Okay, checkered flag, checkered flag. Okay, copy. This was not so good. The lap was not great, but also I had too much understeer and no speed with on the overall connection. Yeah, okay, copy that. Okay, have a proper debrief when we come in, mate, okay? How about tire pressures, front tire pressures? More happy? Yes, happy. Feel good.
So the voice of Scotty, his engineer, and Nicky Katzberg. That was debriefing on the way back in before you even get into the pit lane, while everything's still really fresh in the driver's mind. So pressures are good. Still a little too much understeer at low speed. Now, quite how you engineer that out, I'm afraid. My basic understanding of engineering is not good enough to tell you. Luckily, they have engineers that know this stuff. So Huffy talking about disconnecting rear bars and whatever, and rear links, and the car getting a little too oversteery, and you sense that might have been the issue with Thiago Montero. So those are the times. Both Volvos in the top 10, Coronel 10th, Ferenc Fischer 11th, and look where all the Citroens aren't. Goodness me, the best Citroen lap in that session was 1.4 seconds slower than the Lada. Well, Alex, perhaps unsurprisingly, is down at Lada, and she's caught up with Nicky Katzberg.
Well, fastest man on campus. Clearly our track walk helped out there. But we did hear you on the comms saying that you've got quite a lot of oversteer. The car's not quite set up how you'd like it.
No, at the moment we still have some work to do. But it's only free practice 1, so we have the time in free practice 2 to improve. But so far so good. I mean, P1, it's better to be there than somewhere else. Not sure if everyone did what we did in terms of tires, but so far so good.
And what are you learning from the track out there?
Well, obviously now, today it could rain, so we had to do a different strategy a little bit for FP1. But what am I learning? I mean, I know the track from last year, and the track walk we did yesterday, you gave me some tips, so I should be good.
Good stuff. Well, it's nice to hear that you think that you've got more pace as well.
Thank you.
More to come, I'm sure. There is always more to... I don't think many race drivers leave a circuit thinking, oh, no, we've got everything out of the car we could possibly ever have got out of it. And certainly, I would think in touring cars, that's very seldom the case. Nicky Katzberg fastest of all then, from the 3 Hondas and the Volvo of Ted Björk, that's your top 5. And then Gabriel Tarquini, Ugo Valente, not far outside, really not far outside. They could easily, the other 2 Lada drivers, see themselves being in the top 5 for qualifying. So there's you know, at the moment, Ted Björk in the Volvo looking a strong bet for a top 5 in qualifying, but then so are the Ladas and the Hondas. So what are Citroën going to produce? FP2 could be very entertaining indeed. If it rains, then all bets might be off. Who knows what's going to happen then? We'll have to wait and see. And you can find out when we